This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. I'm Ron Stutz. Always fun to have a conversation with Logan about getting you to and through retirement. And we're going to talk about that coming up in just a moment. But of course, Logan Sadler at Regari Financial. Logan, great to be back on the radio with you.
Yeah, great to be back here, Ron. Looking forward to another educational show here.
We have a lot of interesting things to talk about today, but the most interesting information I can give you is Logan Sadler's phone number. It's so important. You can arrange to have a discovery meeting with Logan about your individual situation that won't cost you a penny and won't obligate you to do anything at all beyond that conversation. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is the number to call for Regari Financial. Wherever you are in Southern California, we thank you so much for being with us today. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. More on that later. You know, a lot of things going on in the news recently, and Logan, I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular that's on your mind today that you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, you know, Ron, as always, I'm always browsing through articles and things of that sort when it comes to financials, right? So that's my reading material. But it was interesting. I did find a lot of people have been talking about, you know, potential recession or things of that sort, and things have slowed down a little bit for the most part. But I did find an interesting article I wanted to kind of share. Mm-hmm. It was talking about single-family house startups, which again accounts for probably one of the biggest shares of home building.
Yeah,
and it did drop by 10.1%, which is, you know, was his biggest drop since June of 2020.
Wow!
So I thought that was kind of interesting because I know a lot of people out there, you know, again, we're obviously recording here in California, but we have clients all over. And, you know, it's really interesting because we have seen a little bit of a slowdown. But it's crazy because you look at the grand scheme of things. It's funny because even in, you know, 2020, things were still on a relatively bull run, right? So you look, I would say a lot of this stuff is going back to what we would call more of a normal market where you're just seeing, I wouldn't call it a slowdown, so to speak. You can call it that because of how hot it was. I know we were talking about that, Ron, where remember people would list their house and it'd sell in 3 days, right? It was pretty amazing.
Or one day.
Or one day, yeah. Sometimes they didn't even have to show it. You know, it was amazing. But now you're seeing more realistic stuff where, you know, maybe a house is on market between, you know, 10 to 20 days. I think the average right now is somewhere in that 18-day range out here by us. So you're seeing more of a you know, a traditional market. So it's nothing to, I would say, extremely panic about at this point. But it was just an interesting thing I kind of wanted to share. That was, you know, our biggest drop there since 2020 of June. And so it's just interesting to look at that. But like I always tell people, it's important to look at things from, you know, a zoomed out lens and make sure you're kind of accounting for what is normal, what is not normal, and kind of looking at all those aspects. But just a fun fact for you guys there.
You know, it's always important to remember the only thing constant is change, and it's good to keep your eye on those kinds of things. And you have Logan Sadler here to do that for you. So, hey, I know that one of the most important things in your business is getting together with your clients on a regular basis and reviewing things. And so today, let's talk about periodic reviews. Any good financial advisor is good at staying in touch with his or her clients on an ongoing basis, and you are certainly no exception to that. I know you're really good at that. But the way that those ongoing conversations look might be different for different people. As we always say, you know, everybody's situation is different. Describe how your periodic reviews can look a little different with these different types of clients. First of all, someone who is very interested in data. I mean, someone who really wants to get into all the numbers and understand every little thing. What is your conversation like with those folks when you get together for a review?
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic when you deal with that client. A lot of the times they're, you know, engineers or something of that sort, but they tend to be more data driven, which, you know, in today's world, I would say is actually more easier. It's a lot easier than you would think it would be nowadays, right? Because now we have a lot of these different tools we could plug in. So I actually like this conversation with this type of client because what I like about data is it doesn't really lie, right? It's kind of just facts and numbers put together, and it kind of gives you either projections or analysis of whatever you're looking at. So we spend a lot of time with clients looking at data, even if they're not one of those clients that is really, really into the numbers, so to speak. It really is good to pull up data and look at those and utilize those tools, because there's tools out there where we could look at risk, right? A client might say, Logan, I got a 401k and IRA. What is the risk I'm taking on this portfolio? What do you think the potential return could be over a period of time, right? With all the tools we have nowadays, we can actually plug that in and get a pretty realistic idea of what is a potential risk. What is the potential risk in this portfolio? What could the potential return be over a period of time if we had a good market? What could it be like if we had a down market? So you could really kind of plug in and play with these numbers nowadays. And I think when it comes to overall planning, a lot of the people, when it comes to data, it really helps people, I would say, kind of ease their mind to know that, hey, we might be in a good market now or a bad market now or whatever's going on, but I know that looking at these numbers in our plan and our retirement plan is going to last 30 years, it's going to work out for us because of these numbers we're putting in. It's showing that it has a good success rate, right? So there's a lot of good tools you could use out there. And I think as an advisor in today's world, our firm, we were a while back, we were traditionally more, a notepad type firm, right? Where all the planning you needed to do was on a notepad, which still works for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But I think in today's world, you really do got to adapt to technology and be able to utilize the data, especially for people that are, the clients that are more data driven. But it does definitely help in those reviews to kind of look at data and kind of see where we're at and where we're going.
Well, you talked about the folks who really want to get into the numbers. How about, I know you get to know all your clients really well, because this is a relationship business after all. But Logan, how about someone who is very family focused? What's that conversation like?
Yeah, that's funny because we probably spend a lot of time with most of our clients talking about families, right? A lot of them are either family friends or they come into our firm and have been here for 10 or 20 or 30 years, some of them. So we tend to know each other pretty darn well, and so a lot of them, we know about their kids, maybe their grandkids. We know a lot about where they're at in their life. And I think that it's always a really great conversation. And I think it's actually something that's very important to the planning process. A lot of people think that might not have anything to do with financial planning, but understanding what your goals and values are is very important, I feel, for your planning process, because typically someone that's a lot more family focused is more focused on things like legacy, right? They're a lot more focused on that aspect of it. So it allows us to really be more specific with that planning, to really kind of cater it to that client where they're more focused on protecting their loved ones, protecting their family, and making sure things are organized for the family's estate. But I think, it really is interesting because I could really say from experience, a lot of our clients that come in, it is awesome to see to know their kids. A lot of their kids might even be clients, and to just kind of get to know their family through, yes, a financial lens, but also through a personal lens has just been, to me, it's a really great way to do business. And I think it's an awesome, attribute to our company where we're able to get personal with clients. I think in today's world, we all know these big firms out there, they're all great, right? It's great to have the big name, but I think that human element and that personal touch still does mean something for our clients. And I know when I'm looking for a firm to do business with in other types of industries and stuff, that is what I look for, is to kind of have that personal connection and know that if something happened to me, this person knows my family, right? Knows where I'm coming from and knows my background, my morals, and all that stuff. So I think it's still really important. I think it's something that should be talked about and focus a little bit more than just on the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. You're listening to Logan Sadler here on the Financial Beat. Again, the number to call for Regari Financial is 888-823-PLAN. We talk often about the different phases of retirement life, and there's the go-go, and then the slow-go, and then the no-go. How about someone who's really in that go-go stage? They want to travel all over the place, are always on the move, and it's like pulling teeth to get them in for a review. What do you talk about with these people?
Yeah, it's funny. Again, as you're reading, these clients are popping into my head here. It's funny because, we have so many clients, which is great. And it's funny because everyone's different, which is I think is what's great about this world. But that client that's hard to get in. And like you said, Ron, believe it or not, a lot of the times it's the retired ones. A lot of the ones when they're retired, it is hard to get them in because now they've been working for 30 years and now they want to travel. They want to go see their kids. They want to volunteer. And so I have one client I was thinking of. He worked for, he was just a really busy worker, right? Had one of those guys worked multiple jobs and did really well for himself, put away a good amount of money, has a great retirement plan, all of that stuff. Well, it's hilarious because he volunteers at like everything you can volunteer for in town. And so, he's at the golf course, the Boys and Girls Club, all this stuff. And it's so funny because it's really hard to get them in for reviews and meetings because they're so busy. But I think if you're one of those busy people out there, I think it's really, really important that you still take the time you need to for those important things. And that's what I always tell them. Hey, I get it, you're busy, but get back to us this week or next month, and let's make sure we sit down and get that review covered, because it's still, life is busy, but it's really, really important that we're staying on track of our goals, making sure our plan's keeping up to what our retirement lifestyle is, and still making sure we're checking in on those things that matter. But it is funny you mentioned that, because there is some of those clients where, man, they're just on the go, right? And it's hard sometimes to slow down and focus, but there's certain things in life you definitely got to take the time to focus on, and I would definitely say financial planning and your retirement plan is one of them. So typically they understand that, but it is funny to see them just on the go so much, but it's also rewarding to see that they're enjoying that retirement.
Oh, sure. I know you have some folks out there who never remember anything about their plan that you helped them put together and what they're supposed to be doing, and so you have to kind of do a refresher course on those.
Yeah, I think it's really, and to your point, Ron, it is funny because there is a lot of clients out there. We'll go over the plan, and some of these people we meet with, every quarter almost. So it's pretty funny because every quarter I'll say, okay, remember, this is how your account works. And they're like, oh, really? That's awesome. And this is how your other account works. Oh, had no idea. That's awesome. And so it's like every year, it's the same, or every quarter, it's kind of the same reminding them of their plan and stuff. And I think a lot of that goes unnoticed in how important the review is. A lot of clients that I've seen that get more panicked or frustrated, a lot of them don't understand or remember what their plan is or what their investments are doing. And that's why I feel the review is so important. It's very, very important for the advisor. The reason why is because it allows us to check in, right? It allows us to make sure we're still on track. Are we spending too much money? Is our income enough? Do we need more income? How's the health? Any grandchildren, any college savings, any of that stuff we got to kind of plan for and adapt throughout the retirement. That is very important for us. But as the client, I feel it's very important that we kind of get in front of each other, either over a Zoom or a phone call, and just making sure that we're touching base and really making sure that we're on track to meet our goals, everything is going smoothly, as well as to review any investments, any types of questions, tax consequences, all of that stuff, just to make sure we're kind of staying on page. And I always kind of call it staying in rhythm. It's really, really important that the advisor and the client stay in rhythm to make sure that we're staying on track. Because again, this is going to be, most of our clients that come on board with us, Ron, are going to be here, 20 or 30 years. So it's important for us to stay on track and stay together and stay in sync. I think when you don't see someone for 2 or 3 years and then try to do a review, it's kind of hard to catch up on everything. And typically that's not the best type of relationship to have. So it's really important, I think, those reviews. It's important for the advisor, again, to make sure we're serving you the best we can and things are still working great, but it's also important for the client.
We know that dealing with money in any shape or form can sometimes be really stressful for some folks, and there's some people out there who always have high anxiety, and you need to sit down and reassure them that the plan is working, that everything is cool.
Yeah, obviously, right, there's those types of clients and those types of people out there, which is understandable a lot of the times in this world we're living in, right? No matter what year it's been this past few years, it feels like there's always some type of groundbreaking thing going on in the news where it's understandable to cause panic, right? So that's fine, but I think the thing we really like to do, and I think that has been very important for our clients, is to making sure that we're really focusing on utilizing planning. And I believe that clients really understand the value of that when you really sit down and go through our process. So we'll go through it with our clients and make them understand, like, hey, here is what your portfolio could do in a down market. That's why we have safe money, right? That's why we have things like CDs, stocks, bonds, annuities, all these other types of tools out there, structured notes, real estate investments. We want to make sure we're utilizing all of these types of tools we can to making sure that our investments are best working for us. And I always tell clients, it's so important when you're looking at your retirement plan. It's amazing when you look at it and you go, okay, when they're panicked, right? I'll tell them, okay, look, we have long-term care covered. If something happens, either of you or your husband go into a facility, we've already taken care of that. The next is, okay, we've already covered life insurance. If one of you passed away early, you have enough life insurance or we don't need it and we're sufficient to cover that if something happens. If we had a market correction, we have safe money. We have other types of vehicles out there that aren't going to be as hurt or hurt at all. And then we have other money out there like a diversified market portfolio, real estate, stuff like that, to where it's going to offset inflation and be a good long-term investment, as well as we have our income covered, right? So I think when you're able to kind of walk a client step by step through each of their retirement plans and kind of show them that you have a lot more than just a 401k, right? You have a full retirement plan where we've kind of covered all those checks and balances along the road to where whatever kind of life throws at us, we're in the best situation possible to, again, transition into retirement and continue that retirement lifestyle throughout retirement. So I feel that's kind of really kind of an in-depth view of what our reviews are like, Ron, with those 6 items we talked about. And if you're one of those clients out there where you feel like maybe you have an advisor or don't have one, and you're transitioning into retirement or maybe just starting retirement, I think it's important to give us a call and come in for that discovery meeting. We can sit down and go over your financials and kind of make sure that you're in the right spot to transition into retirement and to stay in retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That is a very important phone number because it puts you in touch with Logan Sadler and all the good folks at Brigari Financial, an outstanding firm that's been around for a very long time. And Logan Sadler works with 3 different generations of some of the client families, and many of those clients have been with this firm for more than a quarter of a century. Terrific partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, everybody involved in your financial life. We'll talk more about that later on. But if you have an advisor already, but you're not getting those periodic reviews, maybe you should call Logan. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz. Logan Sadler is on the radio. We'll be back with more on the Financial Beat in just a moment.
At the end of the day, no one truly understands your financial wants and desires better than you. That's why it's important to have financial independence. This means you can work when you want, you know exactly where your income is coming from, and most importantly, your finances are stable. If this sounds like something you want, well, text the word ADVICE to the number 21000, and Logan Sadler and his team at Brigari Financial can provide you with their free guide on achieving financial independence. The free guide will show you how to create an action plan for getting to where you want to be. It'll explain how to calculate a financial independence goal, and it'll define what an ICE egg is and why it's so important. Download it now by texting the word ADVICE to the number 21000. Again, text the word ADVICE to the number 21000 to gain your financial independence today.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
The beat goes on. The Financial Beat. Logan Sadler on the radio, and your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, who is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Brigari Financial. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember it is by using the word plan, which is so essential for all of us. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler, of course, has great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists, everybody involved with your financial life to help offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for clients. You can get a discovery meeting going at no cost. Could be on the phone, could be via Zoom, could be in one of the convenient offices in Hemet or Redlands. 888-823-PLAN as your number to call to make that happen. Hey, Logan, I read something interesting earlier this week that just kind of blew my mind because I'd never really thought about this, but when howling together, wolves harmonize rather than howl the same note, creating the illusion that there are more wolves than there really are. I've never really thought about that, but if you think about hearing wolves howling, they do harmonize. Isn't that amazing?
That is something interesting. What's funny, wolves are one of my favorite animals because they are so. I think they're so unique in how they hunt together and all that, and how they run in the pack and all that stuff. But that is interesting that they do that, right? I mean, it does. now that you think about it, when you hear wolves or whatnot, that does make sense to think of the harmonizing, but it does sound like there's a bunch of them out there, right?
Yeah. No kidding.
That's
I
interesting.
just never really thought about that. That's pretty cool, I think.
It is awesome.
Let's talk about some of the worst investors that you have met.
The wolves of investing, right?
Exactly. You've met over the years, and talk about some of the details involving their lives. If you take a close look at the worst investors out there in society, you'll find some recurring traits and mistakes that show up a lot. And our question to the listener today is, are you guilty of any of these? Logan Sadler is going to explain. How about the people who are trying to get rich fast? Logan, what do you say to them?
Yeah, that's somebody I think we all know, and you've seen those advertisements late at night on YouTube or Facebook, right? Call me and you'll get rich quick type thing, right? But, let's be honest. I mean, most of the time, those get rich quick schemes, and by most of the time, 99% of the time, it's just something that it's just not realistic. A lot of the times it's extremely high risk, and a lot of the times the return on that is not going to be nearly what you think. And I'll be honest with you, I tell clients all the time, I was actually meeting with a younger client the other day, and he was asking me, it was interesting, he asked me, what do all of my top clients have in mind, or in similarities and stuff? And I was like, well, it's funny because all of them have something very similar. When they accumulated their wealth, it was done over a period of time, right? They didn't do anything crazy, nothing fun, nothing sexy, right? They just put away a good amount of money each month, and they did it for 20 years or 30 years, and they didn't overspend, and all of a sudden they ended up with a good hunk of money. It's not, a lot of people don't win the lotto. A lot of people don't just bet on this right stock and quadruple their net worth, right? A lot of the times that get-rich-quick stuff is not how a lot of these people with wealth tend to make it or keep it. So I think that's something that's really important that I tell a lot of our younger clients that we're meeting with is, hey, look, it's very important to understand that when you're investing or when you're putting money into something, most of the time that it's made over time, right? It's very rare you might get lucky once or twice, but it's very, very rare where you're going to do a get-rich-quick scheme and keep it or find one at all. So I think it's important to really think long-term and to not get caught up too much in the hype and understand that investing is a long game, not a short game.
888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler at Brigary Financial. 888-823-PLAN. The name of our show is The Financial Beat. We're talking right now about the worst investors. There are some folks out there who focus only on areas that they can't control. That's not a good idea.
No, that'll drive you nuts, right? That's like, if you can't control something, there's really not a whole lot of sense about worrying about it. Now, with that being said, sometimes there's things you could do to maybe protect yourself down the road. But I always tell clients, you could watch that ticker tape all morning long. And guess what? The stock market doesn't care what you think, right? It's going to go up or down that day based off of the numbers. So it's something where you can't sit around and try to control things that you can't control, that you have zero control over. You can't control what inflation is going to do that year. You can't control future tax rates, right? You can't control the market. So I think it's really important to take a step back and look at what you can control. Reverse that question and look at what assets or what investment decisions or what decisions do I have at all in this life that I can control, and focus on those. I tell people a lot where you could focus on what type of risk you're taking in your investments, right? You can't control what the market's going to do, but you can control what type of risk you're taking in your investments. You can control what types of investments that are guaranteed, what types are safe, what types are risky, which ones have liquidity. You could also look at, okay, maybe there's some tax advantage investments out there like Roth IRAs. We know that those aren't going to be taxed down the road. So maybe if we're worried about that, let's focus on something we can control. I know I can contribute to a Roth IRA or a 401k Roth, right? Focus on those types of asset classes and those types of ideas instead of focusing on, well, I got $1 million in a traditional IRA that's going to all be taxed. I'm just going to worry about it for 10 years about taxes going up down the road, right? That's not going to help you. It's not going to help your spouse. You're just going to drive yourself nuts. So it's really important that you focus on the aspects of your retirement plan that you can control and really exploit those and really take advantage of those to the full potential. But don't focus on those things that you have no control over because, like I said, it doesn't, as much as you worry about it, it's not going to change anything.
There are some people out there invested in the market who just take any kind of a market loss personally. And, they think it's just directed at them. But, that's not a good idea to do that either.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Yeah, so let's just say they're invested in XYZ. XYZ goes down, they're mad at the CEO, right? It's one of those things where, they didn't decide to go down that day because you were a shareholder, right? It's because they had issues or whatever happened. So you can't take market losses personally. I even tell clients, when we're investing in stuff, I always tell them we really want to make sure any loss or any type of risk you're taking in the market, you got to understand that any types of risk come with upside, right? And they come with downside. So you got to be very mindful of that and making sure you're looking at that through an up and a down lens. A lot of people get into investing, and I've said this time and time again on the show, Ron, but it's probably a bad analogy, but I think it works. Where it's like a marriage, right? Where when you're investing, it's going to be up and down. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes you're kind of mad at it, or whatever the case is. But it's part of investing. It's part of a friendship. It's part of a marriage where things aren't always as smooth as you might like. So you got to know that there's always risk involved.
Why is it you and I always end up talking about marriage on this show?
I know, no kidding. Our wives probably aren't too happy with us, but
trying to make them happy. I mean, that's the thing, man.
Exactly.
Hey, this last question here before we move on to another topic about the worst investors, not being honest, even with yourself, about your limitations, that can get you in trouble too.
Yeah, I feel that when you look at investments, when you look at retirement planning, when you look at that whole scope and that whole world, you really want to make sure that you understand what your situation is, and you make sure you put yourself and your family or whatever you're looking at in that aspect, that you put yourself in the best situation possible for what your situation allows. And like I always tell people, all you could do and all you can control is what you can control, and all you have is what you have, right? So you want to make sure that you're utilizing that to the best of your ability, and don't think ungodly about it, right? Don't come up with these crazy, unrealistic expectations. Come up with things that are realistic, and a lot of that's what an advisor should be doing for you. Again, a lot of the times what we do for our clients is really kind of set the table, I call it, of expectations, because it's really important to understand that, hey, if I'm investing, if I have $100,000 in an investment and I'm hoping that goes to $300,000 by next year, that's probably not realistic at all, right? So it's super important to know the realistic expectations of your situation, and really making sure that, again, that you're not overhyped there on your predictions, but making sure that you have someone that's working with you to set those expectations about what's realistic, and to making sure that you're maximizing your situation. I think are all great contributions that an advisor should be bringing to the table.
Yeah, a lot of things to talk about here, and if you would like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about your situation, you don't want to become one of those worst investors that we've been talking about here. Get together with Logan Sadler, put together a plan that can get you to and through retirement with a minimum of stress and a lot of certainty, a lot of peace of mind about where you're going and how you're going to get there. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember that number is 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler will sit down and talk with you for a few minutes, either on the phone or perhaps via Zoom, or maybe in one of the offices in Hemet and Redlands. And all you have to do to set that up, and it's not going to cost you a penny, not going to obligate you to do anything at all, 888-823-PLAN. We'll have more coming up in just a moment. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and there's more on the way on the Financial Beat.
Did you know music is good for the heart? A study at a university in Italy showed that music helps promote a better cardiovascular system. But we also know that a sound financial plan is good for peace of mind. Keep listening to the Financial Beat so we can help you find a plan that both your head and your heart can agree on.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. And Logan Sadler not only has this radio show, but Logan, I know you have podcasts out there for folks to enjoy and to learn from. And also you got videos all over the place on YouTube. Tell our listeners about those and how they get them.
Yeah, you can head over to YouTube and type in The Financial Beat. And over there, we have a bunch of different videos we've been uploading each week. And it's kind of like this radio show, but they're a little bit more slowed down and specific on certain topics of retirement planning. We have a bunch over there on what a backdoor Roth IRA is, how to assess your risk tolerance, looking at the values of life insurance, and a lot of other types of investment decisions and things that you need to be ready for. So if you haven't already, go ahead and head over to The Financial Beat on YouTube. Click subscribe, and again, we upload videos each week on a bunch of different retirement planning topics.
Well, you also not only get the information that's available there, but you get to take a look at Logan's handsome face as well. So,
Yeah.
there's that.
You're just being nice, yeah.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation with Logan about your situation. Remember, no cost, no obligation for that. Hey, a lot of what you do is helping folks with planning their estates. And for some people, leaving a financial legacy isn't really very important at all. But for others, it's very important to eliminate some of the common estate planning mistakes. One thing you can do, a lot of people do, you got lots of company, failing to plan for expenses that can be foreseen, especially health care, which people don't like to talk about. And they don't even like to think about it. Right, Logan?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, when you look at some of the estate planning mistakes you look at, the expenses can be a very unforeseen area, right? But we typically have an idea of maybe new cars down the road or home repairs, things of that sort. But a lot of the times we don't look at things like healthcare or long-term care. And I talk about this a lot with our clients because it's one of those areas that, again, we specialize in retirement planning. A lot of our clients are typically about to enter retirement or just in retirement or some point in that retirement journey. And it's really one of those things that has to be talked about because a lot of our clients that have been with us a while are now transitioning to that phase where long-term care is a very, very real possibility. And I remember this client, she came to us a lot later in the planning phase. She was almost in her early 80s or late 70s, I think, when she came on board. Now she's in her early 80s. And she had said when she originally had gotten her retirement plan that nobody had ever really talked to her about long-term care. And it was one of those things where her husband was now having to go into a facility. And I remember what she was saying. She said, I wish somebody would have talked to us about this in my 50s and 60s. It's one of those things where you feel like, and she said, even if they did talk to me in my 50s and 60s, I probably wouldn't have listened, right? But now she wished she would have. It's because it's one of those situations where long-term care can get so expensive. I always say, I can't even begin to talk about the emotional aspect of it, right? Putting your spouse or your mother or your dad or whoever into a care facility, that is one aspect of it. But the other is the financial. And a lot of us that want to leave money behind to our kids and things of that sort and or to charities or have some sort of a legacy, it is really quite amazing how much long-term care can eat into that budget there very, very significantly. The average people are staying in there is around 2 to 3 years, depending on male or female. And the average cost is really close to $100,000 per year. And that's the average.
Wow.
So, like you're saying, Ron, I mean, that's ouch when you hear that number because you do the math. I mean, some people, that means of their estate, they're losing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of money going to a care facility. And so a lot of our clients, when we're talking about how to maybe get some plans together or look at things, a lot of people say, I don't want to buy long-term care. Well, that's fine. Not that we have to go that route. A lot of the newer policies that are out there, in my opinion, have really got a lot more customized and really more beneficial for the client. But if we're not going that route, fine. We just got to decide what assets we're going to use because the fact is that one of us will probably spend some time in a long-term care facility when we're looking at a spouse or a husband and wife. So it's just super important, I feel, to have that conversation. And a lot of the times I feel without a good income plan, you don't have a retirement plan. But I also feel if we don't have a plan for possibly long-term care down the road, we also might not have a complete retirement plan. So it's definitely a conversation you got to have.
Another thing where people fail is not updating beneficiary designations, and that can lead to some real big problems.
Yeah, it can. It can. I've seen everything under the sun, I want to say, on this topic here. I had a client, he passed away, and I don't know about you, Ron, but I've never wanted to be in this situation, but he was married and then got divorced, and of course his life insurance was left to the ex-spouse.
Wow.
right? I mean, it's one of those things. That's not where you'd probably want your money to go to, right?
Probably not.
So I've seen, yeah, definitely. I've seen that. I've seen a lot of people that they either have maybe 2 kids, they get a life insurance policy, and then all of a sudden they have a third one a few years later, and they forget to add the kid on the life insurance policy. I've seen that happen. So I mean, there's a lot of those little instances where beneficiary designations may sound like, oh yeah, it's just super simple, and it is super simple, but it's something that you do not want to forget, because there can be different tax issues or different things involved, and again, you don't want your money going to people that you don't want it going to. So it's super, super important to update those. And I actually have a client who we were working with a little while back, and it was an interesting case where his wife had passed away, and he was dealing with the passing of his spouse, and obviously was going through that whole emotion, and he never changed the name. It was in her name only. So he never put his name or transferred it into his name, and he passed away as well about 6-7 months later. So unfortunately, there was no contingent beneficiary on that account. So now I'm working with the kids, and it's going to possibly have to go to probate and things of that sort. So there's just a lot of those little things about updating beneficiaries, making sure that the names on the accounts are up to date. It's something that it's really a simple task a lot of the times if done correctly, but it's something you definitely got to make sure that it's up to date. And we always tell our clients it's super important I would recommend to check that at least on an annual basis to make sure that, again, everything's kind of updated and all those dots are crossed, and make sure everything's good to go on that aspect.
And I was going to say, I mean, that's one of the things that you typically talk about during your periodic reviews that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, we actually make a sheet for our clients. A lot of them have a sheet we make where, it says each of their accounts they have, all their investments, their plans, and then it also goes over beneficiaries. This account's going here, that account's going there. And it's something where I think it's really important to kind of take a look at that each year. Super important.
Another group of people out there, and you may see yourself in some of these comments that we're making here today on the Financial Beat, but there are folks who fail to take steps to avoid conflict and potential litigation among heirs and family members, and that sort of goes along with the last situation that we talked about, particularly when it comes to, people not getting what they thought they should get and all that sort of thing, and people do tend to get greedy when money is involved.
Yeah, it's funny. If you think you know your siblings, or if you think you know your family, just throw $1 in the middle and you'll see how well it might work out, right? Or how well you know them. Sometimes there's no problems. I deal with a lot of families where everything goes really smooth, everybody gets along, and it's all good on that aspect. But there's a lot of the times where it's not as smooth as you would think it should go. And I think what I believe in a lot of the times, having those conversations with your kids and things of that sort ahead of time. If you have money going to charity, it's your kids. Tell them, hey, I have some of my money going to charity. It's my choice, my money, and I can do kind of what I want with it, right? But also having those conversations about maybe, I know split families are a tough time sometimes, where you get married later in life and have different kids from different marriages. Waiting till you pass away is not the answer on that most of the time. It's typically better to have that conversation of how you want that structured ahead of time, to make sure that it's set up how you want it to go, and that there's no questions asked at the end, and making sure that you're trying to avoid that potential conflict, because it's really, really important. And just because now that you have those conversations, the next most important step is to document that, right? To make sure you have the proper will, proper trust, proper beneficiaries designated, to make sure that now that we've had that conversation and we've addressed that, now we also have it documented. So now it's going to go exactly how you say, and everybody kind of knew that situation or that choice was coming. And I think that's typically the best way to kind of deal with that, to make sure that, again, that there's no fighting while you're not there to separate that, so to speak,
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Again, Logan's number is 888-823-PLAN. And a lot of folks, Logan, think that transferring real estate while they're still alive, instead of having it transfer at death, is a good idea. How can that sometimes be a problem?
Yeah, a lot of the times that could be a problem. We work, I always tell people, we work with an estate planning attorney that we deal with. So a lot of the times we could delegate a lot of this to him, because that's more their realm. But it is something where we always advise clients, let's talk through this before we do it, because there's a lot of implications on that. Now, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, well, the house was going to go to me anyway, so I'm just going to sign it over to me. That way mom doesn't have any assets in her name, right? So maybe she can qualify for some government benefits or things of that sort. Well, you got to be aware because there are look-back provisions. A lot of people forget that you can't just give an asset of $500,000 away and, it might be put back on the table when they look at the look-back provision, as well as you might have totally blown the stepped up in value on that property. A lot of people don't understand how real estate transfers after the person passes away. Stepped up in basis is something that is a really, really good key attribute, in my opinion, to real estate for transferring those assets very efficiently. Because how that works, Ron, is let's say mom paid $200,000 for that house, and now it's worth $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. If it's in mom's name and she passes away, how that would work is you would get the stepped up basis now of $1 million. Yeah. So you wouldn't have to pay all that extra in taxes. So it's a very efficient way to do it. And I always tell people, let's bring in the attorney, let's bring in the tax person we work with. We have a CPA, a couple CPAs we work with. And I think or even if they have their own, I'll say, let's bring this in and make sure it's really the best decision, because it sounds like, I'll just sign it over to make sure everything's done and we're good. Yeah. When really the proper way to do it is typically to have a trust in play to make sure all that's documented, and possibly to maybe reposition some assets. But before you do all that, you want to make sure, again, we're making sure we've looked at the look back provisions and we're not doing anything that's going to possibly cause more in taxes, because I think we all could agree, we understand taxes got to be paid when they got to be paid, but we don't want to be giving taxes away if we don't have to. So it's definitely worth having that conversation ahead of time, because that's probably one of the more common mistakes we see, where people aren't aware of that stepped up value and basis, and as well as the gifting and look back provisions.
Well, that leads me right into the last question I wanted to ask you on this topic, and that is the fact that a lot of people don't consider at all the tax implications of their estate. There are certain things to consider, and that's another reason why you need to talk to Logan Sadler.
Yeah, it's something where I think taxes is one of the most common things that we're planning around, Ron. A lot of our conversations, like you said, that's what we're having with our clients that are coming on board right now, because a lot of us are accumulating lots of wealth in real estate, stocks, bonds, 401ks, all that stuff. And a lot of us know that tax rates might go up in the future. So I think now more than ever, it's just important to really get a game plan together for how are we going to structure our assets over our retirement plan to get the income we need, to look at long-term care, but also to manage it the most tax efficient way possible throughout our retirement, as well as when it comes to the estate planning. If something happens to you and that's passing down to your heirs, how can we do that tax efficiently as well? If there's a plan or if there's a way to do it, we want to make sure we're talking about it ahead of time. And when it comes to tax planning, a lot of the times, the more time you have to work with, typically the more you can accomplish, and then typically move things along a lot better and more efficiently with the more time we have to work with. So if you're one of those clients out there where, again, you've accumulated a good amount in your retirement savings, you're getting close to retirement or just retiring, and you're looking to get a discovery meeting together, you're looking to, again, talk with an advisor that looks at the big picture and looks at more of the financial planning aspect and looks at things through a tax lens, I think it's important you make that phone call, come in, and I don't pass you off to anybody else. You'll come in and sit down with me at one of my offices or on Zoom or a phone call, and we'll get that discovery meeting process to make sure that you're on your way to that peaceful retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Hope you've written down that number already, but if not, please do so right now. 888-823-PLAN. You can call that number right now during the show. Simply leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back from Regari Financial, and you can set a time to have that discovery meeting with the one and only Logan Sadler. Yep, same guy you hear on this radio show every single week. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make sure that you can have a conversation with Logan Sadler. No cost, no obligation. You're listening to The Financial Beat. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler. There's more coming up.
At the end of the day, no one truly understands your financial wants and desires better than you. That's why it's important to have financial independence. This means you can work when you want, you know exactly where your income is coming from, and most importantly, your finances are stable. If this sounds like something you want, well, text the word advice to the number 21000, and Logan Sadler and his team at Regari Financial can provide you with their free guide on achieving financial independence. The free guide will show you how to create an action plan for getting to where you want to be. It'll explain how to calculate a financial independence goal. And it'll define what an ice egg is and why it's so important. Download it now by texting the word advice to the number 21,000. Again, text the word advice to the number 21,000 to gain your financial independence today.
What is your name?
I'm Arthur, King of the Britons.
What is your quest?
To get retirement ready.
What is the PE ratio on your portfolio's top grossing products?
I don't know that.
Don't get blown to bits by complex jargon. Let Logan help you over the bridge to a meaningful retirement.
Welcome back now to more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. The number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan about your individual situation, 888-823-PLAN. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to retirement planning. Logan Sadler always takes an individual approach. At the same time, it's a very comprehensive approach, taking into account everything in your life, not just your money, but also your lifestyle and what you've done to prepare for your retirement. And if you're interested in getting to and through retirement in the most smooth way possible, 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. Hey, Logan, always enjoy these questions that we get from our listeners. The first one today is from Nelson in San Bernardino. And Nelson says, Logan, my wife is 61 and recently received a medical diagnosis that will likely be fatal within the next 2 years. We're currently navigating short-term and long-term disability options at her job and deciding what to do about her Social Security. How should we be planning in our situation?
Yeah, Nelson, that's a tough situation. Our thoughts are with you both on that. That's a very tough situation to go through. Unfortunately, we do see that from time to time, and it's a tough situation to go through, but I think you're on track with doing the right things. But I think the biggest thing I would look at when it comes to a Social Security is I would want to know whose is the higher amount. So let's say, example, if your wife's is the higher amount and you're eligible for Social Security, I would let hers continue to keep growing until her full retirement age. Because if not, either way, that higher amount would be passed on to you. And that way, it's a better way just to get more out of Social Security in the long run. Obviously, Social Security does have some other benefits where sometimes you could take it early. So I would definitely want to know more about your guys' situation, income, see who is the higher earner, and kind of take a look at those two situations as well as kind of understand your age and where you're at. That way we could better kind of advise on this situation. But you definitely want to make sure you're kind of crunching the numbers here to make sure we're getting the most we can out of that, as well as those short-term disability policies. If you had one or her current job provided one, those can be a huge relief for you guys during this time. So you're on track. But I think definitely I would give us a call and sit down and we could look at what other assets, income, Social Security, all that other stuff, and be able to kind of give a further guidance in what direction might be the best in that situation. Because it's very, very hard sometimes to think clear during something like that's kind of shell shocking like that you guys are going through. So again, our thoughts are with you guys, and definitely give us a call and we'd be able to kind of shed some light a little bit more on your situation once I have a few more facts. But I would definitely want to make sure we're maximizing the higher Social Security.
A lot of things to think about and a lot of things to talk about, and certainly seek the help of a professional. Logan Sadler would love to talk to you about all of this and get more details and help you do it in the best way possible. Again, Nelson, the number is 888-823-PLAN. And again, we will be thinking about you, and hopefully you'll call Logan's office and arrange to have that conversation. We got a great question today from Bud in Redlands, and Bud says, I retired 3 years ago, but I just did the math and discovered that my withdrawal rate from my savings is about 6%. Logan, is that way too much?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bud. Thanks for writing in there. That typically is a great question to really ask and to really make sure we're covering that efficiently. And one of the things I would ask a question to that question is it really depends on how we're invested, what age you are. If we're in a really aggressive portfolio, are we in something that typically can average a 6% return or close to? I think what a lot of people forget, I don't know how much you have in your retirement savings or how it's positioned, but let me use an example. If you have $1 million, in your savings account or in your investment accounts, and you're taking 6% per year, right? That's around $60,000 out per year. So it's something where you got to realize if we had an additional 10% loss that year in the market, let's say you're invested in the market, that means you're down 16%, right? Because you're taking 6 and you're down 10. So now you got to realize how much of a return do we have to get now just to get back to even? The answer is not 16%, right? Because now you have less money in there to get back to that $1 million mark. And so it's something you really want to kind of make sure you're looking at that return versus risk and making sure that we really want to stay closer. A lot of the rules of thumb are closer to 4%. It's kind of the rule of thumb. But I do have clients where maybe we have annuities or real estate or other types of investments, and then it allows us to maybe take more out of our market money than might be recommended just because we have more flexibility. So it's something where I would definitely look at that. But 6%, depending on what age you are, it could be a little bit too much, and you might run the risk of possibly running out of money or running out of money sooner. So it's something I would definitely give us a call and make sure we're covering that, because that is a huge concern, and making sure we're covering that ahead of time before it's too late would definitely be the best way to go on that.
That is certainly a great question, Bud. We appreciate your sending us that question. Next question here is from Cade. I like that name, C-A-D-E.
I do too.
Cade. And Cade lives in Temecula. Cade says, I just found out I have a pension from an old job that I didn't even realize that I had. Nice surprise, although a little bit embarrassing that I didn't know about it. I'm told I can either take it as a lump sum or as a monthly payment. Which is better?
Yeah, great question, Cade. We do have a lot of clients where they tend to what I call lose money, right? What I mean by that is they literally lost it and forgot about it, and then they find out that they had a pension or a 401k or an old IRA somewhere. So that's great. It's always nice to find money. But again, that's actually one of the things we do for a lot of our clients is make sure we're keeping things organized, because it's very easy to misplace some of these old accounts sometimes. So I'm glad you found it. Now back to your original question, what is the right thing to do? Take the lump sum or the monthly payment? That's a great question, and it really comes down to each pension. I've had clients, like we work with a lot of retired people that are retiring from Edison, Kaiser Hospital as nurses or PAs, Costco, a lot of these places, and some of them like Edison and some of the nursing facilities and AT&T and things of that sort, they actually give you a lump sum on your pension, or you could take a payment. A lot of the times you want to really make sure you're meeting with the proper financial advisor, because there's a lot of times out there where you can get a monthly payment somewhere else that might be more competitive, as well as it might actually become part of your estate, where if you passed away, sometimes a lot of those monthly payments, they disappear. So again, I have to tell a story, Cade, where I had a client where she worked about 30 years for one of the large educational jobs out here, not going to name any names, and essentially she had a big pension that she had accumulated, and 30 years of working there, she took 4 payments, and then she passed away. And unfortunately, she took a single payout. And so her husband, the pension was like $6,000 a month she was receiving. Her husband got 0.
Wow.
Right? By making that wrong choice of just checking the box without talking to somebody. Again, sometimes it's the lump sum's a better option. Sometimes the monthly payment is. But even the monthly payment, sometimes there's different options. So you really want to make sure you're sitting down with an independent third-party advisor that could really make sure we're getting the most out of this pension. Because again, you don't find money every day, right? And it looks like you found some money, so you want to make sure we're taking advantage of that as best as possible to make that last as long as we can and as efficiently as we can over your lifetime.
Kind of a good problem to have. And
yeah.
I would suggest you call Logan Sadler and have a further conversation about this, because there are lots of details to work out. And Logan, I'm going to give out that number again in just a moment here. But again, final thoughts for our listeners on today's show?
Yeah, I think it was a great show. We covered a lot of really important topics. And I think the biggest message we always like to send on this show is we help people get to and through retirement. That is what we do. We strictly work with retirees that are approaching retirement and looking for a way to get that customized retirement plan to give them that peace of mind and that confidence as they transition into retirement. So if you're getting close to retirement, if you're 5 years or so out from retirement, or maybe you're just about to retire, give us a call. I'd love to spend an hour with you and shed some light. And like I always say, it doesn't hurt to have someone review your financial plan or if you don't have one, to help create one. So give us a call. I'd love to be able to sit down, have a conversation, and show you how Regary Financial can bring some peace of mind and some value to your retirement plan.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. As Logan just said, you can have this conversation. There's no obligation and no cost. And, heck, after the conversation, you can learn a lot, and then you can ride off into the sunset. That's what you want to do. But there are no strings attached. That's the important thing to point out. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call for Regary Financial in Southern California. Offices in Hemet and Redlands. All you got to do today is call this number and leave your name and phone number, your contact information, and Regary Financial will get back with you. And then the actual conversation that you have will be with Logan Sadler, the same guy you hear on this show. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. Again, no cost and no obligation. Hey, Logan, it's been fun talking with you today about getting folks to and through retirement. You passed along a lot of good information, but it's all individual, and there's no one-size-fits-all, no generic plan for retirement because everybody's situation is different, right?
Absolutely. Everybody's different, and that's the best part about our job is, everybody we meet with, whether it's from the radio show or whether it's one of our events, it is great to, at the end of the day, just have a great conversation, get to know each and every one of you and make sure we obviously are providing value. And at the end of the day, that's what all of our resources are for. That's why the podcast, the radio show, and the YouTube channel are there for you guys. So again, as always, was a great time hanging out with Ron for an hour, and hopefully you guys driving around took some great value from this, or wherever it is you're listening. Hopefully you got some good value, and we will see you guys back here next week.
Remember the name, Logan Sadler. Remember the phone number, 888-823-PLAN. Remember the name of the show, The Financial Beat. I'm Ryan Stutz. Have a great week.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for anyone. All information discussed is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of BD Financial Group and do not necessarily represent the views of Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult with your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and BD Financial Group are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.